Guys, welcome to my first YouTube video. I told you guys on Instagram that I want to start talking about my favorite shows, and a few of you expressed some interest, so I thought I'd just go and run with it. So I think the first show I'm going to start with is The Good Wife, just because that's what my blog's dedicated to. It's probably the opinions you might be most interested about me talking about, so I'm just going to roll with it. So, for those of you who don't know, which I'm not really sure it's going to be a problem, considering you guys follow me, but for those of you who don't know, The Good Wife is a show that it started airing in 2009 and ran for 156 episodes and just ended last May. So basically, it was based on sex scandals of politicians, primarily the Spitzers, but the Clintons and Anthony Weiner, they all probably had their part in the story. The question that Robert and Michelle King posed, those are two of the showrunners, was what happens after that press conference? And it's not just why does she stand by him, it's what happens behind that and how do you move on from that. So I started the show when I was 12. It aired in 2010 in Australia for me. So that would have been, I'm pretty sure it was February. I started watching the show because my auntie wanted to try it and I was awake that night, so I watched with her. She didn't like the show as much as I did, but I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? So basically the show revolves around, her name's Alicia Florrick. She's married to Peter Florrick and has been married to him for at least 15 years. But she finds herself standing by him when it's revealed that he had slept with prostitutes. The main one, the only prostitute as far as I'm sure of, is Amber Madison. I don't actually think it's prostitutes, and if it is, it was never fully confirmed in the show, but I guess it's not really important. So basically, the show opens with Alicia Florrick standing by him, and Peter Florrick is resigning as his role from state attorney because he's facing corruption charges, which could send him to jail, and they end up sending him to jail for 3 to 6 months. Yeah, okay. So now I've got all those basic details out of the way, maybe I should start talking about the show. I think the show taught me a few things. Firstly, it taught me about, I don't want to sound corny and say female empowerment, but I really do think that is something that's quite important within the show. The other thing it taught me about was the morally grey nature of people and the world, and I think it exposed the challenges of trying to be ethical and completely honest when it would benefit you more in regards to your career or your own protection to not be that ethical. And I think the third thing it taught me was trying to decide. The third thing it taught me would be what it means to grow up. And I'm going to talk about that mainly in terms of Grace Florrick, because she was about 11 or 12 when she started when she was introduced to the show, and then she ended the show when she was 18 or 19. Look, the show's timeline is a mess, but I don't really know many shows that have like a solid timeline that makes complete sense, so I'm not going to complain about that. So the first thing I mentioned was female empowerment. I do actually want to talk about Alicia, but I think I'm going to start with Diane here, because I think Diane has some of the most quality quotes in regards to what it means to be a woman, and to be a woman who doesn't necessarily fit into the expectation that we've imposed that shouldn't really exist, but that exists anyway. And there's a few quotes that I'm thinking of. The first one is, I want what I'm worth. I think as a female, it's hard to express the fact that you deserve to be treated equally and earn the pay and the severance package. Like, you deserve to be paid what you're worth. You don't get devalued because you're a woman. And I don't even think it necessarily just applies to women, but I do. I can't say her name. Danielle Sepulvede's wrote an article about the show just after it finished airing, and she was mainly the body double of Juliana Margulies, but she did do other. She was standing in for different parts of the show from time to time. She's also written a great book. I'm just going to throw this out there. It's called Scandal. Oh my god, I can't even remember. It's on my thing. Scandalous Story of an Almost Virgin. It's a really good story, but anyway, and it's completely true, which is probably the most heart-wrenching part, but not the point. What she talked about was she was mentioning how she was talking about female empowerment, and she was talking about how Hillary Clinton, and she was talking about a few things. She talked about how Hillary Clinton, I should probably mix my articles now, but she was talking about how, well, females earn less than men by the hour type thing, and she was also talking about, she brought in a quote about it takes a village, and she's talking a lot about female equality, I guess, and other things. I'm just thinking about when you think about how Hillary Clinton is treated in the media as president, it's kind of interesting to see that story contrasted against someone like Diane, because somehow, in terms of how we saw Diane, because we as viewers, I know many people who love Diane, like I literally don't know. I feel like Diane is probably less controversial than Alicia Florrick. Literally every single person I've ever spoken to is like, yeah, I love Diane. She could be she's not always a favorite character, but there's very few people who tell me they don't like her. But anyway, so what they're with someone like Diane, she never needed marriage to be fulfilled. She ended up getting married, but it was never a requirement for her to be happy. She didn't have kids, and I think that's already, just with those basics, it already subverts the stereotype that women need to be mothers or need to be married in order to be happy. Like, that's already a really good start. But then you think about how Diane digs deeper when she talks about how she deserves what she's worth, when Will and the rest of them are trying to get rid of her from the firm after she pulls a bad interview. Like, it was a poor action, but she values herself enough to know that she deserves to be paid what she earns. She's confident enough because she believes and knows her worth. Like, that's it. Like, that's a really important message, and I think it's a message that often isn't mentioned, but it's really, really great to see represented on TV. But I don't want to just talk about that. It's also the same with Alicia, in the sense that neither Diane or Alicia are perfect. Alicia has said things that make you angry, like she's not always pleasant, she's not there to be your good wife, and that's really obvious in the sense that the title might be called A Good Wife, but that's not really her story. Her story will always be what she managed to do, and despite all that, we love and respect her. And I think if you can love and respect a fictional character for to be your role model or to be someone that you value, why can't you transfer that type of feeling towards real life women? There's this constant expectation that women have to fit in this category. This have to be. There are only extremes for women to exist, and when you have characters like Diane and Alicia exist, it's kind of like, look at us. We're not going to fit into your good wife or your cold demeanor or you have to be a mother to be happy. This is a story where Alicia Florrick happens to be a woman and she happens to make bad decisions, but doesn't mean she deserves to be disrespected. I want to go more into that, and I want to go more into a few of Diane's other quotes, but I kind of don't want to in this point. I'll probably bring it up now, which my other point was about how the show taught me how morally grey the world is. Okay, let's get the basic stuff is really obvious. Like, it taught me what a sex scandal was. It taught me about there's a little bit of drama in politics. Okay, there's a lot of drama in politics, but it gave me an insight into what politics entails. It taught me that the law is not necessarily the most just system that there can be. It does depend on weaving the best truth you can. like that stuff plays off in real life. You think about cases where rich people or people who are popular, and in this case I am talking about straight white males, if they can hire the best possible help they can, they will overcome the fact that they committed a crime. And I think a great example of that is the second episode case, which was where a stripper escort, who by the way is by no means a perfect rape victim, is raped. It's very easy to say that you will support rape victims, but I do know people who push that line, who go, hold on, what was she, not just what was she wearing, but what did she do? Oh, okay, well, was she drinking? Like, there are people who will push those questions, and then the good wife tackles that head on because it refuses to let you believe she was anything but raped, despite being a escort and despite her details being fuzzy. Like, it's so important that the show in its second episode is already confronting that idea that this perfect rape victim does not exist, and you can't just use that to defend yourself. There's a really great quote. Actually, I want to talk about this now. There's a really great quote about rape victims versus perpetrator, and I know it's not just females who are raped, but I am going to focus on that. And that's, why is it when a rape case arises, a woman has a past, but a male has a future? Like, think about the most recent case right now is Brock Turner, who, by the way, is getting released from jail on Friday. 3 goddamn months in prison, that's it. And the most embarrassing thing about it is that he will spend more time in jail than 97% of rapists. Yeah, startling stat. It's scary, isn't it? That the good wife tackles this like pretty much instantly. But I don't think that's all it. I think when I say it taught me how well great the world is, I also meant in the terms of characters like Diane and Alicia. So in the fourth episode, Diane talks about it's not always right, it's not always wrong, but we always follow the law. And it's kind of a scare. Like, when you hear those words, it's kind of just like startling, you know, because it's like, no, they bribed a jury. They should have to face the consequences of that, right? Well, technically yes, but the world isn't that perfect. If the law can't bend to what you want it to do, what can you do? But I also think it comments a lot on Diane, because I think there's a point where ethical boundaries, where your ethical issues are going to be overridden by your personal motivations. And I think in that case, that case was a victory for Diane. She won the case. Like, to her, she zealously represented a client. She did her job. And Alicia's ethical fear or Alicia's ethical quandary doesn't have a place in that story, so it's just not part of it. It's always it interests me so much how you can see in the show moments where you think or you hope the character will do better by ethical standards, but they're not going to, because sometimes it's for the greater good. I mean, maybe those, in that case, for example, they deserve to win. They just didn't win in the least corrupt way possible. Or maybe Alicia Florrick could have won the state's attorney campaign without taking that Guy Redmayne's money, who, by the way, was really, really sexist and misogynistic. I'm pretty sure he was racist as well. He was just really awful. But that's what the good wife does. It doesn't let you believe people can always be morally good or can match your standards. And I think no one shows that better than Will Gardner, but I want to talk about Diane and Alicia, so I just already covered that. The third thing I talked about was me growing up with the show, literally. And I think Grace Florrick perfectly captures that. When she is exposed to scandals, she's like 12 years old. I don't have that type of history. My parents aren't politicians or no sex scandals or whatever. But I was exposed to more than the average 12-year-old, I guess you'd say. And I think having Grace Florrick literally grow up with me and now attending Berkeley. Okay, I'm sorry, season 7 is such a blur in my mind. I don't even know if that's correct anymore. But seeing her attend Berkeley and know what her dreams are, it's really comforting. I went through a long time, and I mean way longer than Grace, in regards to trying to struggle to find who I am and be happy and be okay with not knowing my future and still trying to survive the shit that happens in my life, my personal life. I think Grace Flow just gives me that hope that you can grow up in less than ideal circumstances and still make it. Your dreams are possible, and you're not expected to have it all sorted out yet. I mean, it'd be nice if it was, but you're not obligated to, and you can still make it without that. And I think that's what I really, really love. That's about Grace Flores growing up. Actually, the other thing I really liked, just another add-on, is how it deals with religion. I'm not religious at all, and I know religion gets a rough understanding when you consider how being Christian can be inherently tied to being anti-gay, or being Islam or Muslim ties you immediately to ISIS, as Donald Trump so lovingly does. Freaking hate him, by the way. Sorry, another little rant. But yeah, no, but I like its take on religion. I just like that Grace doesn't push her views, and it's just something that becomes part of her, because it's where she found her sanctuary. It's where she found what she needed in order to make it, and I really respect that writing. And I know I'm actually bringing this up specifically because I know a lot of people hated the religion discussion on the show, but I really think it was quite a refreshing take on it. It was, yeah. If you want to know one thing that still truly bugs me about The Good Wife, okay, maybe two things, is that I do think it has racial problems. I'm not a citizen, I'm not a resident of Chicago, but I do know, based on people I talk to online, that Chicago is not as white as The Good Wife makes it. I do think The Good Wife, in its later seasons especially, had a real problem with casting, with talking about race and hiring the right characters. And I don't want the show, obviously, to just be tokenistic and just get this brown and black guy in or whatever. But I do think it failed in that regard. And I think this issue was exacerbated by all the drama with Archie Panjabi and Juliana Margulies. That just made it worse. But on the bright side, the one comment I did see on Tumblr once was, it still amazes me that The Good Wife killed off the white straight guy and sent off the bisexual woman of colour in the happiest ending that Kalinda could get. Let's be real, she wasn't going to get everything she deserved, but that was kind of impossible. Considering what happened, it was not the worst thing that she had. The second issue I kind of want to touch on was... Actually, no, let me think. The second issue is primarily about writing, and I think I don't mind, I don't problematize what people do, because we should be able to do that ourselves. But I do think it had issues with writing. Just, there are times when you knew they had this like long game, and then they were filling stuff up that wasn't really adding to that game. They were just trying to get to that point where they could start writing again. I felt like they were just trying to rush their way to the points they wanted to write. And I think season 7, plot structure-wise, is kind of a mess. But I don't want to talk about it. Everyone talks about how bad season 7 is, and I agree, but I don't think you need to hear it again. I do think the show was not perfect, but I do love that I grew up with it, and it's almost 20 minutes, so I think this is the end of my video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know if I'm very rambly or very talkative. I'm not gonna watch this back. If you guys like it, just leave a comment or leave a comment on my Instagram or whatever you want. DM me. My Instagram is at tgwlover. Yeah, I'll put it on the description. Yeah, if you want to see more from me, tell me what shows you want me to watch or what shows you want me to talk about. I've got a few others in mind, and I know I'm not a great speaker, but it feels more honest. I don't know. I think I just want to take a break from writing and just use my voice literally. So yeah, I will see